I've been so wonderfully introduced. Thank you so much. And I am the co-host of Radio Boston, WBUR, and a proud Brookline resident for 13 years now. When I first moved out to the East Coast to go to graduate school, I landed in Allison Rimmer, and she's president of Allison Rim Associates, a consulting firm that tries to teach and train and coach people on how to set and achieve goals, find joy, purpose, and success. And before that, she was senior vice president at Massachusetts General Hospital, and she was in charge of strategy for the multi-billion-dollar hospital.
Okay, so I didn't realize I'd be following people with so much data, so I'm really glad I have some. But I'm really here to talk to you about the importance of happiness at work. So can anybody here, can you think of any reason why you wouldn't want to be happy at work or enjoy what you do? Okay, well then you might find it surprising that that's actually a pretty debatable, controversial topic in the business world. And in fact, not long ago, I was having a debate, which I did win with some data, with an editor from one of the world's most prestigious business journals who questioned whether people would really be interested in the topic of happiness because he wondered whether people would find it possible to find happiness on the job, or wouldn't most people really value other things like money and professional accomplishment over happiness? To which I answered wanted data. So first I said, I find your thesis that happiness is something that would be in competition with money or professional satisfaction. And in fact, I would see those two things as very related in both directions, and I'll tell you more about that in a moment. But does it matter to other, according to, in comparison with other things? Well, in fact, it does. And here's some data for him. I was glad. I had just happened to have read an Israeli study, so I could give him the data he was looking for, that showed that people who experience stress-related illnesses are far less likely to take sick days to recover from the symptoms if they feel like they are receiving emotional and other forms of support from their supervisors. Okay? U.S. businesses lose $225 billion a year due to absences from stress-related illnesses. So I would say that those are a lot of reasons why this issue matters, if you need data. Okay? But again, the data question of it, to me, puts us so much in our head, and that's where a lot of Americans live, when in fact we're made of mind, body, and spirit. We bring our hearts and our heads to work every day, and that really matters. So I'm going to just give you quick little snippets of some practical applications of this information, empirical data, if you will, but there's a real upside on to fostering happiness in the workplace if you want sustainable, high performance from people who work there, right? It just makes sense to make work a place where people actually want to be and where you give them opportunities to fulfill their own potential and to do things that matter to them. So when I was still at Mass General Hospital, I just left there in September, but about a little over a year ago, I really thought it's time to get on top of this budget crisis in healthcare. So Meg has been reporting, and everybody who looks at a newspaper can't get away from the fact that the Massachusetts legislature is once again dealing with the crisis in healthcare costs, which, by the way, I've been in healthcare for 25 years, and it's been in crisis since I got there, so I'd like to know when they're going to solve it. But anyway, it looks like they're about on the verge this time. They're duking it out in the House and the Senate again, and they're going after high-cost providers, which Massachusetts General Hospital is right at the top of the list. And so the writing was on the wall for this one years ago, and I got my IT department reported to me hundreds of millions of dollars of budget, and they said, you know, we're going to have to get on top of this budget situation, and it's possible that we might have to cut our budget by as much as 10% over the next couple of years. Why don't we plan now for how we might address doing that so that we're not going to do it when the hammer falls and you've got 2 months to slash $20 million. That means your job is gone and your job is gone and levels of service are out the window. So So being a strategist where I could look out the window, we were planning ahead. And what I did was put together a process that allowed people to figure out what they were really good at, what they cared about, and to get together in a fun and structured way that will get us the result that they want. Because I said, how would you redesign the way that we deliver IT services in a way that's going to maintain the level of service that we need and the excellence that we're all about, but we'll get this extra money out of the system. So this is your shot at saying, you know, if the suits upstairs only did ... things would be a lot cheaper and more efficient. So I gave them a voice in their future so that they could claim some hold of it. We made it into a fun process. We put design challenges together, and the prize was we would implement great ideas. We also brought in a couple of doctors who were doing some world-class work and really showed the people how what they did mattered in terms of serving patients and saving lives, because that's really what motivates people. So just to fast forward through that process, we put a lot of ideas out on the table after people worked on it for a while, and when I asked for volunteers to help implement some of these things, 100%, every single person in that room volunteered to serve in one of the implementation task forces. And when I went back a year later to see how things were doing, they're on track, still going forward, and they're really way ahead in redesigning the way that they're doing their work. So when the budget axe does fall, they're ready. They're way ahead of just about everybody else around there. That makes them happy. Now, on the other end, you can imagine that there's a real downside to not having happiness in the workplace. So as a management consultant, I go in and I help people figure out how to get work, what they need done. And the medical director of a health service, but not Mass General, another area, called me when he was out with his wits' end because he was having such a problem with absenteeism, people being late and not showing up at all. He was so at the end of his rope that he had started docking the pay of doctors who were showing up late for clinic, because when they come in late, the whole schedule falls behind and it wreaks havoc. First of all, I thought it was a little ironic that a doctor was docking docs' pay. That's another story. But my job as a consultant is to get at the root cause and what's causing the problem. And it didn't take too much time for me to do some investigation when I got there to find out that he felt he was too busy to deal with his doctors himself. So he hired somebody else to come in and run the operation. And that guy was just a little bit of a tyrant. And he just created such a terrible environment that the morale was horrible. So the staff weren't showing up, and the doctors were kind of scooting in late. So when we got rid of the tyrannical problem, all of a sudden things got a little bit better. So those are kind of obvious empirical applications of why this issue really matters. But I also want to point out that these studies are really good for making long-term decisions. They're not so great for making in-the-moment decisions that a manager or leader has to make all the time. They have to rely on in real-time information, and a great leader relies on information and intuition. And I remember I said that people show up with their hearts and their heads at work every day. Well, our emotions actually are a great source of data, and if we pay attention to them, we can learn a lot. So when you think about how you feel about taking on an assignment or how you're approaching a certain piece of work, that's something that's really important to work with. Now, I don't have a handy-dandy app, but I do have a way to measure it. And I keep this in my office. This is my joy meter. And when I think about taking on a project or working with somebody, I always evaluate the joy ratio. It's very important. And if you think this is just funny, it actually isn't. Although laughter on the job, very important. I kept that in my office as a visual cue and a reminder to factor in joy and the decisions that I was making that affected hundreds of people throughout the organization. And by the way, everybody in the hospital and on the management team was in my office filling with my joy meter all the time, including the president of the hospital. All right, so I just want to leave you with the notion that you actually have more control over your happiness at work than you might think. So you may not have much to say about what you have to do, but you have everything to say about how you go about that and how you approach your work. So I want you to think about what you might do tomorrow to add some more joy notes into your day's work. Okay? It could be something as simple as bringing in a really cute smiley face mug, or whatever makes you happy. Or think about how you deal with your colleagues, your customers, and so forth, and see if you cannot bring an extra smile to your face. I truly believe the American workforce is ready and ripe for a joyful revolution, and I plan to be there leading the charge. I hope a lot of you will join me.
Allison, do you agree with that? I mean, that's what you're helping people with.
To a point, I think your survey was actually very interesting, and the question about are you happy right now versus are you happy? Because one of the things I do teach people is try to be in the moment. And think about that. If you are here right now and truly present, chances are you have everything that you need. I mean, absent, extreme poverty and so forth. But if you just sit here and think about that for a moment, we're in good company, doing good things, talking about a fabulous subject. That's a pretty important thing. And we are so busy, especially with all these data, gadgets and gizmos and stuff coming at us all the time, and getting so much information about what's available and out there. I think it puts enormous pressure on us. Enormous, because there's always this notion that there's something more or bigger or better. And there are lots of studies, we don't want to go in that one too much, but that have shown more and more how uncorrelated money and happiness are, those two things. And the wealthier we get, the less happy we get over time. There are tons of studies. Number 11 on the World Happiness Score, Harvard, even with the Ivy League grading, it's not impressive.
Are we asking the right question when we say, how can we be happier? Maybe we should be asking, how can we experience life with greater value and meaning?
I think that's a critically important question. And so there is actually a very famous American psychologist, Abraham Maslow, who talks about the hierarchy of human needs. So he talks about how you meet your basic physical needs for money, security, and so forth. But after that, you sort of move up the ranks about what really motivates people. Human connections are really important. And if you think in your own lives, go off, this will be a fun and happy-making exercise. Go off tonight and think about some of the peak experiences in your life and moments when you were feeling the greatest joy. And look at what was behind that and think about how you might want to replicate that in your life a lot. I know that when I do that exercise, it's moments when I'm connecting deeply and meaningfully with other people, or getting people like you to laugh at all my jokes. Make me happy. But anyway, right at the top of Maslow's hierarchy of needs is self-actualization, and that means putting your gifts and talents to work in a way that it makes a meaningful contribution to the world. And by that, most people experience the greatest satisfaction. And I would suggest that if you're clearing away a lot of the clutter, you might get a lot of stuff done and checked off your list, but it may not be stuff that matters. So what you really need to think about, and I do this every morning when I'm working out or in the swimming pool if I get to the gym, I really think about what are my big things that I need to accomplish today. And those, I call them my big rocks, and everything else is sand and pebbles, and those things have to wait until I fully